listening to Erik the Travel Guy, the podcast.
It is episode 6 in our first season of podcasts, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you receive fine audio wonderfulness. You know, we still have the doot theme music. Some really smart people have assured me we want to maintain continuity. At the same time, I just wish we were speaking together today on better circumstances. Gosh, if you've never listened to this podcast before, we're kind of stepping out of our norm a little bit in that normally we'd be talking about where to go, what to do, where to stay, how to make the most of your next great adventure. That's what we're all about. Aaron Sega is off on assignment today. Randy is here. Andrew is here. Sal's here. And, a lot of really awesome people work on this podcast. And that's normally what we would be doing. But today, once again, just like we did yesterday, here it is already, the 12th of March at 11 a.m. Eastern. And we want to give you another update on what's going on with the coronavirus and how it relates to travel. So I'm sure you're seeking this information out. So thank you for listening. That's why Andrew Kalb is here once again. He kind of keeps track of the media for us. And Andrew, good to have you back again today.
Hello, Erik. Good to be with you again.
And unfortunately, the media story is still being dominated by this story. Unfortunately, the story that's being dominated in the media is the coronavirus. So here we go again. And there's a lot of information to get to. So will you help us out a little bit? Where do you want to start today? Airlines, cruise lines, what do you think?
We saw last evening the president announcing his travel ban, Erik, and that surprised a lot of people. But it probably, according to experts, may have been the right thing, depending on who you ask. Or may have been too heavy-handed, again, depending on who you ask. But it impacts people coming from Europe to the United States. There are exceptions, of course. The UK is not included in that. U.S. citizens will always be able to get back home one way or another. They'll figure out a way, the government, to help U.S. citizens get back home. We saw overnight a JetBlue passenger on a flight from JFK in New York City going to West Palm Beach after he landed, was tested for coronavirus, and the test came back positive. So I think that flight had about 115 people on board.
Yeah.
So we're seeing things like that happening. We saw some more headlines. Princess Cruises canceling cruises on 18 ships for the next 60 days.
Yep.
Princess, of course, part of the Carnival family.
Yep.
We saw a Viking cruise late yesterday, suspending service until May 1st and offering full refunds to the consumers, which, of course, is the right thing to do. So there's a lot of moving parts, and probably as we've been speaking for the last couple of minutes, more things are happening.
Well, and again, we're seeing this sort of timeline. And now this timeline is encouraging to me in terms of, look, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. Even the president last night saying, okay, it's Europe and it's only for 30 days. Maybe we're going to extend that. Maybe we won't. But at least for the time being, because again, I think this is certainly something that's being reiterated in the news, which is we're trying to slow the spread of this virus. Whether or not this virus is happening on our shores is a foregone conclusion. It's here. It's going to spread. At least that's what I've read from the CDC and the WHO. But what they're saying is, look, we cannot have a strain on the healthcare system. We have to protect our healthcare workers because, once again, anybody who works in a hospital, you have an outbreak in a hospital with workers, now they need to be treated. So they're saying, once again, we need to take these steps in order to slow this. Did I read that right?
Exactly right. It's important. There's two ways that you do this. You do this by containment, by preventing the spread, by containing people to certain locations. That's what they're saying to people. Stay home if you can, and if you can work from home, that's one thing. And by testing, and we know there's some challenges right now by the number of test kits that are available.
Right.
And we do know, testing or no testing, the numbers will rise. We just don't know the true number yet because everyone has not been tested yet. And in China, we saw hundreds of thousands of people being tested by the day. In South Korea, we saw people by the tens or 15,000 by the day being tested. Here in this country, in the United States, it's been a little more difficult to get enough test kits necessary to test everyone. So you have to protect people by either containment, keeping people out and keeping people in a confined area, and by testing, getting the results and knowing where the areas are.
And I have to say, what's nice about this podcast is we're able to give fact, and we're also able to always give a little context to the thing and perhaps even some helpful advice. And I got to say, Andrew, you and I kind of share the whole, we're not exactly waiting for the sky to fall on us. We're trying to be positive through a really tough time for a lot of people and for a lot of reasons, economic being some of them. But, they're saying, if your community is asked to sort of self-quarantine the community, maybe cancel schools for a week or two, just to once again sort of slow this whole thing down. Even 2 days ago, I think I spent like $120 on Amazon. Now, I was with my children. We were watching a movie and we took kind of breaks in between, and they were doing some other things. And I literally ordered things that just were, I don't keep a lot of things here around the house, certainly in bulk. But I got to say, spending $120 on antibacterial wipes and some paper towels and peanut butter, it kind of made me feel good. I hate to say that because it sounds so but there was sort of a therapeutic, if we're going to be confined to our house or asked to do so, I did participate in that, and frankly, it gave me a little tiny, tiny bit of peace of mind. Is that crazy? Is that nuts or what? Am I losing my mind talking about this every day?
No, not at all. And you hit on a very important point here. It's to be calm and common sense. You know, at the end of the day, every little thing will help. Yeah. Wash your hands for 20 seconds, the experts say, which is smart. And quite honestly, these are things we should have been doing before coronavirus.
Correct.
Having enough paper towels and sanitizer. These are things easier said than done.
Right.
And they'll probably be, when we look back at this in 6 months or 8 months, whatever the period of time is, we learn from these. We go through this. We learn after SARS and different diseases that we've had to deal with, and viruses and other tragedies, natural disasters and so forth. Hopefully you learn each and every time from this. But look, this is very serious. We can't eliminate, that from the conversation. But life has to go on, and that's very difficult, when they're canceling. Look, we saw the NBA, canceling events. And this is a travel podcast, and let's not lose sight of that.
Agreed.
But the NBA, people plan weekend getaways. They plan, destination trips and things like that. And we'll see other activities like that, and concert tours being postponed, Coachella, Stagecoach, events like that. Pearl Jam earlier in the week announced that their tour was going to be canceled or postponed. And all these things tie in together because people are going to be stuck at home and so forth.
Agreed. And again, we travel for a living. We're a travel company. We're also a media company. So I've certainly taken calls almost every day of like, well, what are you guys doing? And up until this morning, we were still planning to go on a cruise to Mexico out of Long Beach. And that's going to be an episode that we're doing for our next season of Beyond Your Backyard. And as of this morning, we decided to cancel it, not because I thought we were going to get the coronavirus on the ship. Actually, I think that's quite frankly, one of the safest places to be for me. Now, maybe for someone who is over the age of 70 with underlying health conditions, maybe that's not the safest place. According to the experts, that's what they say. Nevertheless, we decided to make that decision with our senior leadership here based solely on we're going to go on a cruise and come back to our home communities. And really, that's what this really is about. I mean, you talk about going out and exploring the world. You do come back with all of those amazing memories and, and imagery, and you taste the food and you take the transportation. Well, there are some things you bring back as well that aren't so great. We talk about that from time to time. Bed bugs being one of them, different illnesses. It happens. Frequently, statistically speaking, in the travel business. But here we just decided, no, that's what's best for our communities, to be a part of the community and stay home and take care of the families, take care of our communities.
that was the right decision to make. And most likely everything would have been just fine, of course, if you went on the trip and came home. But it's the fear, and more so than the fear, it's the concern of the unknown.
Yeah.
And, we saw what happened last night when the president made this announcement. Who are we to say that there won't be a similar announcement with jet travel and you'd get stuck or stranded in Long Beach, California for a period of time, and the family implications for any number of people?
That's exactly right. Again, here in the tri-state area, our spring breaks, at least for us here, is at the beginning of April. We've just got those concerns they're real concerns, not just in your own home, but certainly in your community. So even with us, yes, we've already altered our travel plans. Now, again, I will be on the road next week going down to Lafayette, which is a little more of a controlled, but that may change between today being Thursday and I think it's Tuesday we depart. That may change. And exactly right. Airlines at the end of the day might say, we're just going to cut enough capacity that just is not possible, not feasible. And that is a distinct possibility. That's part of the unknown here. But let me ask you this. In your opinion, what are the experts talking about in terms of where do we go from here with travel? Because to me, I'm looking at the tea leaves and saying, I think the spring break season and certainly a huge chunk of the summer travel season is going to be altered significantly. Is that a broad characterization that's probably pretty accurate?
It probably is pretty accurate. And a lot's going to be determined on what happens with these sectors, with the cruise sector, the air travel industry, and so forth. If people are not able to because, number one, they don't want to, or they're not able to because the cruises are not sailing or planes are not flying, people are going to have to then make the decision, do they put the family in the car and do they travel, from the Northeast? Do they go down to the Jersey Shore where they can control their travel environment? Mm-hmm. They can get to a hotel, they can have fun in the sun, play on the beach and so forth and whatnot. And trips like that, road trips, will we see an increase in that space happen this summer? And it's very possible. But we also have to understand the economic impact of this as well. And will people in general be traveling as much as they were previously? Or unfortunately, will there be some tough decisions that people are going to have to make? And if that discretionary income is not there that they can use for travel, will they have to make other decisions as it relates to travel plans?
Well, I think that's a really good point because once again, if I could address the first part of your statement first, it's funny you think about okay, well, you're going down to the Jersey Shore, and that's just one of, thousands of options depending upon where you live. But even still, are you going to go to a theme park? Will that theme park be open? Number one, are you going to go there? What hotel chain are you going to stay at? Will that be available? Will your Airbnb have changed because of, at almost every turn in terms of travel, there will be a consideration made because of this virus. That is something that you do have to think about. And it is worthy of note that, a lot of people are traveling for the NBA. A lot of people are traveling for conferences, competitions, all the dance competitions, the cheerleading competitions, the athletic competitions that are all happening both at the high school level and certainly the college level that are all going on now here at the end of the school year. All of that will be affected to some degree.
No, absolutely. And it's a concern of the unknown again. And it's easy to say wait and see, but we're going to have to wait and see. But at the same time, there are steps you can take, from a planning situation, and just taking care of yourself and your family and your loved ones is the most important thing you can do.
Well, and we talked about this yesterday, which is, of course, we're not taking anything away from the severity. But you ask, what can I do? What can I do to help, right? Well, first of all, I would tell you, look at those airline prices for later in the year. Look at the cruise industry for later in the year. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. October, November, December, January. A lot of those rates are published and available now. So if you still are on the hunt for, we do want to travel, we think this will kind of slow down, quiet down. This will be part of our normalcy in a much less of a capacity, and we're still going to travel. We want to be with family over the holidays. Now is the time to look at those those rates, because those rates are published and the airlines want the money. They need the money. The cruise industry needs the business because the cruise, just like the airlines, support people. So it's not like we're not just lining the pockets of greedy airline executives. No, you're directly supporting frontline employees, frontline team members that are at the front desks, that are in the restaurants, that are on those airplanes. Flight attendants don't get paid unless the flight takes off. I mean, that's as simple as that. So that is something that we can do now while we have this wait and see immediate situation in front of us. Wouldn't you agree?
No, absolutely. It's plan ahead, plan accordingly, be smart about your decisions. But realize we're going to see numbers go up and people are going to be, I don't know if the right word is surprised by that, but they're going to be somewhat shocked by when they see the numbers go up a lot. But that's expected. And all the government officials from Anthony Fauci at the National Institute for Health on down to local government leaders, mayors and governors and so forth have been saying the same thing. And that's important just to realize. And also, let's not forget that hotel chains and cruise ships, they are beds. And let's think about this for a second. In China, they built emergency hospitals in relatively quick order. One challenge we face in this country, if the numbers continue to rise, particularly with a certain segment of the population, older people, elderly people who are more predisposed to other illness that will make coronavirus that much more serious for them, they're going to need certain levels of care. And hotels and even cruise ships can become a certain type of hospital at the sea. We've seen that before during natural disasters. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's one possibility out there that if this continues to go in a certain direction, we may see needs for those beds come to life because folks may not be traveling and there'll be empty hotels and other places like that.
It's so funny you mentioned that. It's interesting that you mentioned that because spending time at the Greenbrier down in West Virginia, the Greenbrier for a short period of time after World War II became Ashford General Hospital. And it was that very thing. The GIs were coming back from war. They didn't have enough beds for them to convalesce and to recover from war, and they needed real medical care and attention, and resorts like the Greenbrier and the Greenbrier itself were converted to military hospitals. Now, that was a time of war, of course, but this is, again, that is not an unprecedented move in this country. We've done it before as late as World War II, for heaven's sakes.
It's a concern of the unknown.
Yeah, it really is. All right. Well, I think we can agree to agree on these issues today, Andrew. And I'm so happy that you're paying, really attention to the media coverage. And all of us, of course, are paying very close attention to the travel industry. We've been talking with airlines. We've been talking with cruise lines privately, just getting their sense of where we're going. And of course, we wouldn't reveal that kind of information, but I was just on the phone with a major cruise line this morning. And again, I'm doing my best to respect their privacy and the interworkings of their business. At the same time, a lot of what we're talking about here is a direct result of having some of those conversations, and we'll keep you posted on that. And I think perhaps maybe we should meet again tomorrow. What do you think, Andrew?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, very good. Thank you, my friend, and thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. We do not take that for granted. We don't take it lightly. Of course, everything we do is at erikthetravelguy.com. When you start to think about, my gosh, I'm going to get a little cabin fever here, maybe we're going to start thinking about our trip next year or later on this year, go ahead and take a look at the latest episodes of Beyond Your Backyard and sort of bathe in the what's coming down the road of certainly a brighter time in the travel industry. So thank you very much for listening. Of course, this podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your audio podcast. And we'll see you again mañana. Stay safe out there. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to the Erik the Travel Guy podcast.
Never miss a video just like this one. Be sure to like this video and, most important, subscribe to my channel. It may not mean anything to you, but it means everything to us. Oh, and you can sign up for my newsletter. Every month, you'll receive exclusives reserved for those on the inside.